guys, welcome to the Pulp Podcast. Today we have with us a financial wellness coach. I'm so excited to introduce her because this is a topic that I'm really, really interested in. People are so, talking about money, worried about money, thinking about money, wondering where to invest it. So I am so happy to have you here, Beth. How are you?
I'm really good, thanks. I'm glad to be here with you.
Yeah, great. So can you just introduce yourself a little bit to the audience? Tell us what you do. What does it mean to be a financial wellness coach?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I'm Beth. I started Finance Her Well late last year as I wanted to really create a community, particularly for women in general, but for both genders, to really support people understand how to manage their money and develop a closer relationship with money. So very much a lot of the work that I do is around financial wellness. And we talk about that as a kind of a pillar alongside your social, your physical health that really helps like connect and then bring that true happiness really, because my strong feeling is that when we feel secure with our finances, then that affects every other element in our lives. Yep. So I really wanted to develop that deeper connection with money. So provide that kind of coaching, those workshops, and various kind of like training that I provide for different people all across the UAE on how to manage money effectively.
Nice. I'm very curious, when people first come to you, is there like a common kind of issue that people come to you with? Is like a common denominator?
No, it can be from anything.
Okay.
So lots of different, some of the quite deep issues that people come to where money is affecting like other areas of their lives through to people, a lot of people in general do want to kind of save more. So they kind of like, you know, I've got this wage, I don't know how to manage it effectively. How do I invest? I don't know how to do that. So there's various different things, but so it can range. Some, like I say, some of the more kind of deeper financial issues that people are facing and just want to get out of that rut. And then others are more practical. Yeah. So how do I kind of like build a budget? How do I start thinking about my future goals and that sort of thing? So it can vary.
I love that. I really am like kind of a fan of the practical, you know, way of kind of planning financially and everything, maybe because just this how my mind works. But I know that you kind of do a lot of things around financial, like psychology, like the psychology of finances and wealth and everything. So I'm super excited to get into that with you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Dubai a little bit. So in Dubai, a lot of people complain about not being able to save, you know, having to, you know, spending a lot of money here and there. Obviously, there is this a beautiful lifestyle that you can have here, and so that you just want to spend your money sometimes. How do you think, like saving in Dubai, how hard or easy is it compared to other cities? Because you're from England, right? Yeah. So I mean, just let's do a little kind of comparison.
So, yeah, it's really interesting. I think you've really brought up a big area that there are so many opportunities here. And a lot of people still have that perception that come to Dubai is like the streets are paved with gold. And as I said, there are lots of opportunities and you can save here.
Yeah.
But what I would say, one of the big bonuses obviously is there's no income tax, or obviously there's corporation tax. But in terms of if you're coming here to save, there is that amount of money that you can put aside. So that's that benefit. I would say, obviously, living standards and cost of living here tends to be higher and getting increasingly more so. So that's where that challenge, I think a lot of people come here and you do the kind of budget of, okay, yeah, I think I know this and I've done my research and I think I can save this amount of money. But then when you come here, there's other costs that perhaps you didn't quite know about and maybe are a little bit hidden, and things that you need to kind of factor in. Particularly those moving costs, the first year or two, I think for people can be quite hard here because especially when you've got quite a lot of like big deposits to put up front, various costs and things like that. But once you're up and running, there are lots of opportunities. Yeah. I mean, obviously, naturally, all around the world, cost of living is going up, right? For sure. Particularly look at England as well, like the cost of living crisis has been a huge factor and we're seeing a lot of influx of people coming over from England in general to Dubai because of obviously so many opportunities, but people do feel in general that they can save. Yeah. But I think there is also that challenge, as you kind of highlighted there, is you want to have a nice life, you want to enjoy the lifestyle here. But there's also that perception like, I need to keep up with the Jonas, like a bit of that keeping up with
the
Jones.
lifestyle means kind of, it's very tempting to.
So tempting. Yeah. Everything's available, everything's on your doorstep, and that's brilliant. That's what we all love here. But sometimes that amount that we're saving each month gets lost a little bit because we're kind of thinking about, you know, if we're want to treat ourselves. Our jobs are busy, things are happening, and we just want to enjoy life to the moment. But that's when you see some of those harder times. And one of the scary statistics that I kind of talk about, I've heard about, kind of banded around, is that 60% of expats actually leave Dubai worse off from when they came here.
Okay, let's go into that a little bit, actually. I mean, is it because of what we just talked about? Is it because of the lifestyle wanting to kind of keep up?
I think that's a big element of it, for sure.
Okay.
Perhaps, or underestimating how much things are going to cost, and maybe wages of different like roles that they're in, and various different elements. I mean, I obviously do a lot of financial planning with people, but there are so many like costs that kind of come up, particularly when you've got children, right?
100%.
So like there's lots of different costs that come up in that front that you might not have budgeted for. So I think it's like different things. I think the most important thing, and I know we'll come on to this, is really keeping your financial goals of what you're doing in Dubai really clear and at the front of your mind, because that then helps you think, okay, I can enjoy my life, but I know that I can, in moderation,
right?
But I need to be focused on, this is the kind of goal that I want to get to.
Okay.
So there's various ways to kind of do it, but I think it's being mindful of, what am I here in Dubai for? Am I here? And some people might be like, do you know what? I've already got savings in the bank, or I've got this, that, and the other. But being mindful of the reason why you're here and what you're actually going to do. And, a lot of that will be enjoying life.
Yeah.
But for most people, there will be those financial goals that they're here for as well.
But I mean, also, let's be real. Like, a lot of people also don't have savings. Like there's, that you could think that you have like a small amount of savings, but in like the bigger scheme of things, it's not enough to like have that emergency fund that you need, to have the, the little savings pocket for going on a trip, like all these things. There's at least like maybe 4 different like savings like accounts that you need to have, I feel.
Yeah. No, they definitely are. I think you're totally right. And that is one of the common things I do see, like a lot of people saying, I'm really struggling to save just this sort of money. I don't know what to do. Like, or even thinking about what they're saving for. I would say a lot of people don't have an emergency fund. I think that's one point that you've kind of picked up there. And I would say that's really, really key, because the reality is that, for wherever you are, you may lose your job tomorrow. And yes, there is the gratuity and things like that come with that. But ultimately, what we do sometimes find is that gratuity obviously then pays off a loan that you might have, and therefore you don't have that fallback option. And the thing I always say to everybody will experience some kind of emergency, whether that's the car breaking down. We talk about obviously the floods a couple of months ago, like that sort of damage, or the air conditioning goes, or something happens and you haven't got that money to fall back on. So it's really important to have that. And particularly if you're starting up a new business, or you're wanting, like I said, to move jobs and you're not quite sure, having a buffer and ideally this is what I talk about, kind of 3 to 6 months of expenses.
That's what I was going to ask you, because I wanted to go into that a little bit more. So how much should people kind of be putting aside every month for the emergency fund?
Yeah, so as I said, I think it's about working out. This is where you need to be really good, disciplined with a budget if you can. So really writing down what it is that you're spending each month, looking back at previous statements, like, well, realistically, where is my money going and what do I need? And then taking those expenses and multiplying those by 3 at least. So those the actual costs, like the actual expenses that you need for your mortgage, for or rent, your food costs, your car costs, those sort of things. Like those are the things you will still need when you're out of a job, like to keep you going. So you need to kind of work out what that would be. So 3 to 6 months, work out what that is, and then put aside perhaps 10%. So I talk about a different model, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit, but at least 10% of that savings pot, if you can, work up. So each month, put aside 10% to build up to that emergency fund that you need, which is that 3 to 6 month buffer that you're going to need to work with should you lose your job or should anything happen, and you need to kind of like fall back on that money to get yourself back on the right track. So
I read this book, which is called The Barefoot Investor. I'm not sure if you're familiar. Yeah. And he talks about buckets.
Yes.
Are you a believer? Yeah, I love
a
bucket. Okay, so how many buckets do you think that is realistic for people to have in Dubai? Like, what do you think we should be aiming for? So we have one, which is the emergency fund.
Emergency fund.
What's the second, do you think?
So you need one for retirement. So
one for retirement.
Yeah, and this would be, ideally you would be thinking about your retirement as an investment option, and that's something I talk a lot with clients, because that's ideally where you can build up a lot of interest and make your money work for you, essentially. And when I talk about investing, I talk about it long term. So realistically, at least 10 years, if you want to do it sensibly and thinking about that, I'm not going to touch that money for 10 years because it's going to be for my retirement. And most of us here won't have those retirement plans available for us, like that, you know, the statutory insurance, obviously, that we have back in the UK, those sort of things. So you really need to think about what that bucket looks like, but it should be a retirement long-term bucket.
Okay. And that long-term bucket, so keep the long-term goals in line with the retirement, like as in the same account?
Yes. So if this is an investment, so as I said, it would be looking across like, where do I want to put something where I can build that money? So that investment piece. So whether you want to do that, and you could work with, obviously there's lots of different financial institutions here that you can work on, or you can do it yourself through investment brokerages, which is I kind of talk a lot with clients around kind of doing it yourself with different accounts. But putting that money aside to build up, getting those into those habits of, okay, this money comes out of my account every single month and it's for my retirement. So that's bucket number 2. And then I talk about, I also really love that book as well. I've quite similar, I have lots of different buckets, but I think it's about really aligning what your financial goals are. So let's say you want to buy a house in the next 5 years. That is a different bucket because that's money that you would ideally want to put somewhere with a high interest savings rate. That's money that you can sit there, like it's either fixed, but you would need, that you can access it should you need to.
Should that go into a different, like, for example, you're with, I don't want to name any bank names, but like, for example, you have it in an account, and then should you put the long-term savings in another account that has like kind of a high interest?
I mean, my advice is often, as I said, it depends what your risk tolerance is. If you want to try investing, which I do think I encourage that, but obviously that's very much looking at diversified index funds.
Yes.
In general. But that would be in an investment pocket. But you're the one that we talk about, let's say like a middle financial goal. We'll talk about those 5-year goals that you kind of need to, let's say the savings house. That's where you want to put it in somewhere with a high interest rate, but you can access. So whether sometimes there's different banks here that you have to give notice, like 3 to 6 months notice before you can get it out, or sometimes you have to keep it there for a minimum of a year or 2 years. Those sort of ones where you feel like that's the money I need to buy the house or to get married or whatever it is.
So long-term goals, kind of life, kind of big life decision goals.
Life decision goals, But ones that the reason I say that is because a lot of people, times with investing, people think, oh, I can just get it out. The challenge is with the stock market in general, it does go up, but there have been times when it's dipped, and we've seen that over the last, obviously during COVID times, and that's this, that and the other, and the 2008 crash. You don't want to put your money somewhere where you desperately need to get it out tomorrow when you're thinking about investing.
So ideally, this bucket you do not touch, basically.
Yeah, your investing bucket, you don't want to be. You want to thinking about that long term, which is why I recommend for retirement, really. But there are other big banks here as well that do kind of bonds. Look at bonds.
Yeah, they do.
Savings. So they do different retirement packages as well that you could work through, which are really helpful and really kind of like easy models to understand as well. So that's one option. Obviously, perhaps the rates aren't as big as probably what you would be able to get in wins, I would say, in the stock market, but they're safe and stable sort of returns. So,
So would you say this bucket also, this is where people kind of invest in like crypto and kind of this like digital wallets and everything, or yes. Are you a fan of crypto or not really?
I think crypto has got a huge potential, but I think it's very volatile. When people come to me and ask that, I know people, I would say a lot of people who have invested in crypto have won and lost. So I think it's important. I think it's got legs, and I think there's room there with crypto, but I think it's important to invest. And there's certain banks here as well that do what we call like robo investing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so they would have a small proportion
like
of
Sarwa app and all these.
That's the one I was going to mention. So that has a small percentage that you can put towards crypto. So that
I used it before.
So that's something that you can think about. So you're not needing to kind of dabble in crypto exclusively on its own, but 100%. It could be built into something, and thinking about that long term as well.
Okay. let's go into kind of the short-term savings, savings for holidays. So that's kind of one of the buckets, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Nice. So that's the other bucket that you would have. So that, again, this needs to be easy access. So anywhere, ideally, as I say, there are banks here that are offering 5% interest. So if you can put it into a savings space at one of those, you can access when you need, and putting aside a small amount each month to those, like you say, the holidays that can grow, and just so it's in a separate savings pot. And that's really helpful because I think you can see that and you can access it, and that's the most important thing. That it's easy to access and it's there.
Can you give us like a quick kind of percentage for how much each savings account should have?
I mean, that's going to vary very much. I mean, the model in general, when I talk about the model of what you should do with your income, I talk about kind of 50% going to your needs. So that's your rent, your bills, your food, everything else. Ideally, that's what you want to work on. Then your 30% is for your lifestyle, like your brunch's hair, like whatever it is, like that's your living.
Right.
And then 20%. Now, ideally, a lot of us come to Dubai, we definitely want to increase that 20% to be a lot more of our salary that we're saving. But I think as a rule of thumb, if you're thinking I'm really struggling at the moment to invest or to save, what would be a good model? That's a good model to use if you can. So in that 20%, then you would break it down in terms of, like I said, ideally you would have at least 10% for the emergency fund. And then the other bit, if you can get that saving, increase it to 30% as a whole, great. Then you would put that whatever into kind of investments and kind of those bigger things that you're kind of aiming for.
Okay. All right. I think that's like a good kind of thing for people to keep in mind when they first get that, like when they get their salary in their account, and then they can have a look.
And one of the things I would say is like a really helpful tip. And this is where it goes into really like if people are struggling to save, try and set up automatic savings so that the minute your income comes in, that goes straight into your savings pot the day it gets paid. So you've set up a standing order or
a direct way to kind of, you don't even have to think about it.
You don't think about it. I always say pay yourself first. And by that, I mean, it literally means put that money, that's your money, that you're not going to touch. The rest of it, then you're going to work. Because a lot of people, and I find this a lot with clients as well, they kind of spend and everything. And they're like, I'll just save what's left over at the end of the month.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not going to work. Yeah. Okay. So tell us a little bit about how people can kind of be able to stick to a budget that, that is not too kind of mentally taxing. Like how do we actually psychologically, how can we budget without feeling too kind of restrained or stressed about it? Do you have any tips?
Yeah, so I think it, as I said, it does. I know it's always not helpful, but I know it's like, it can be quite taxing to do, but I think it's helpful to really think about what you're spending your money on. Okay. So really sit down and work out a bit of a budget and just think, because the minute you do that, and I do this with clients, right? And the minute they're like, I didn't realize I was spending so much down at like Spinneys, or I didn't realize I had all these subscriptions.
Talabat or one of these
all
apps.
Those, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, where is your money coming out? Like that's one thing I would say, and it is have an understanding about what subscriptions you're signed up for, where your money's coming out that you don't quite realise, because you're probably able to save some of that money when you think, actually, I'm no longer using that. Actually, I set that up over a year ago and I don't know.
100%.
I don't need that. Or no, I don't need that gym membership because my building's already got one. Or there's different things. So I think doing a bit of a sense check on what it is that's actually coming out of your bank account. Now, I talk about joyful spending as well.
Okay.
And because I am a big fan of like not restricting yourself when it comes to spending. If you think about a budget and like what you're spending being similar to kind of being on a diet, right? If you restrict yourself too much, you're going to fail.
Backfire. Yeah.
It backfires. So you need to think about what are the things in my life that bring me joy right now. Now, for me, like I always talk about this with everyone, but like I buy flat white every single day.
Me too. I love a flat white.
So that's it.
Don't make me stop it.
I know.
Yeah.
So I don't. Then that's fine. You work out what are the things that bring you joy that can get you through the day.
Right.
And you make sure that you spend and don't compromise on that.
Because I was going to ask you about this whole kind of, thought, I guess it's like it was a kind of thought trend, whatever it was, like last year, people were talking about that stop buying your iced lattes, you're spending all your money on iced lattes and avocado toast, and that's the way to save, like just cut those things out. Do you think that's true?
I think that there's other things that you can cut out instead of those. And I think that when you do that exercise, as I talked about, and you really see where your money is actually going, you can cut out things that you're not like, that don't bring you joy.
Right.
and that don't bring you happiness. And that's where this has come back to the financial wellness side that I talk about, like spend money on things that make you happy and bring the joy of the experiences and save for the future. If they're things that you're like, actually, I don't need that. These are things that no longer bring me joy in my life.
Right.
You can cut out on those quite easily. And sometimes things like, okay, do you know what? That means that this month I'm going to go on one brunch as opposed to 2 brunches or those sort of things. So you can move things around so you still feel like content and happy.
Yeah.
But you don't need to have it to do it all. And feel free to say like, this weekend I can't, guys, do you mind if we just do something local?
Low-key, yeah.
That sort of thing. Don't feel afraid to say it, because you know what? Like there are so many people who probably feel exactly the same thing. Like a lot of us feel, and this comes back to the psychology of times, like many people are so scared to say, oh, I can't afford that.
I can't do it.
I can't do it. And they're so like, will I get judged if I say this? And
it's also a fear of missing out. It's also, definitely. Like if I hear all my friends are going out to a nice dinner, I'll be like, I don't care how much money I'm gonna go because it's gonna be fun. I mean, you live only once and all this kind of.
Yeah.
But that's definitely not the financially mature way to think about it. But I'm not sure if you already like kind of touched on this, but what do you think is the number one mistake people are making when it comes to saving?
Now, there's different things. Firstly, goes back to the point of that I mentioned earlier, where I said that people wait to the end of the month and just save what they've got left over.
Okay,
that's number one, because you're always going to just find yourself. There are always going to be things that come up each month, as I talked about, or different things that rail you along the way, and so it's going to be very tricky to get to that savings goal that you've talked about. So importantly, work out what it is that you're saving for each month, like what goal, let's say buying a car, like, I don't know, let's say you need $10,000, whatever, to buy the car.
Yeah.
Just as an example, but like work back, how long is it going to take me to get to that? And what is the amount that I need to put aside each month? And then that comes out as a direct debit, first thing that hits the minute your income comes through. The other thing that I would say, and go back to the buckets point, is that I hear quite a lot from people who keep their savings in the same bucket or same bank account as where other things are coming out. And that can be quite hard. And also it's much easier this is why I love that they're talking about the difference. And there's various bank accounts that have separate saving spaces that you can have. And it's just, that is all it is. And that money for you psychologically, you can see that growing each month as well. You can see the interest mounting up. But when you've got things coming out of it,
it starts feeling like, someone's taking something from you.
Exactly. So then that is one thing I would say is have those separate buckets just for that. And there's nothing, you're just adding to it. You're only adding to it. You're not taking anything out of that account until you need to.
Okay.
So that's what I would say.
Keep it in a different account, bank account. I guess like a different bank.
Yeah.
Or like card.
Or if it's so as I said, certain a lot of banks here have separate savings spaces for you.
Yes.
So you can put them in different, this is why I love the bucket concept as well. So you can just filter that in and say, right, that's holiday bucket, that's car bucket, that's house bucket, whatever it is. And you've got that. And then that helps structure how you think and you can see that money growing. When you see money growing, psychologically, you feel like you're on the right track and it keeps that 100%. Momentum going.
Yeah.
It's like going back to like being on a diet and losing weight. When you can see that like happening, then you keep going and it gives you that motivation.
Yeah. And the opposite is true, obviously. So when you see it going down, you feel like you start feeling depressed, and suffocated. And oh my God, how am I going to get out of this? But let's go into that a little bit. People who are already in debt, what is the best way? Obviously, it depends on how much debt you're in, but like how, say somebody's just kind of messed up for a year, and they're in a little bit of debt. What do you think that's the first thing they should be doing?
So they need to be thinking about acknowledging the debt is the most important thing, and creating a plan about how they're going to pay it off. Now, if they have various debts in different places, which you often do find people might have had credit cards and big loans and different things, you need to think about ways, and certain banks allow you to do like a loan consolidation plan where you can put it all together.
Okay.
So then you can pay that off, and obviously that's consolidating all the amount of interest.
What if they're from different banks?
So you can do that. So certain banks allow you to move over so like, as I said, you can transfer that debt into one and then you can pay that off. But importantly, you need to think about where is the highest interest that I'm paying, like where am I paying most interest on whatever debt it is that I have? Because you need to be paying that off first, right?
Right.
So as part of the kind of, the model that I talked about earlier, you need to build in that percentage because a lot of people... And what you do find, let's talk credit cards, but people just pay off the very, very minimum.
That's right. And then they're forgetting that whole interest rate amount.
Which can sometimes be like up to 30% or like, you know, a huge amount. So you're never actually paying off the original amount. You're always just paying the interest and then the interest is mounting and growing and compounding. So it's really important to tackle where you've got that high interest first. And if you have got different debts lying around, try and consolidate them through different plans and then work through, like, okay, I'm going to pay more than the minimum amount. You might not necessarily be able to pay off the amount. Ideally, in an ideal world, when you cut to credit cards, you need to pay off the balance rate each month.
Right.
But if you're really struggling with that, for whatever reason, try and what is the most that I can pay more off and then slowly build that up over time so that you're kind of paying as much as you possibly can.
So that you're not dragged down by the interest rate.
So you're not dragged down, exactly by that, And so, as I said, I mean, a lot of people can either, you know, go cold turkey and like, I'm not doing anything, I'm going to just sit in for a month or whatever, but that's never going to work. It's similar to going on a diet, right? Like don't be crazy with it, but be strategic with it and think about how you can actually get that interest rate down as quick as possible because that's the most important thing. And then thinking about monthly, okay, this was going to take me 6 months to pay it off if I do it in this way or a year, whatever. And that still can put aside some savings as well. But ideally, you need to put focus on paying that debt off first.
Do you think people should try to pay off, for example, someone's using their credit card to pay it off completely every month? Or is that something that's like...
I mean, the ideal, right? If you can pay off the full amount, the balance. Yeah.
The balance.
That's the most important thing because the thing is with certain credit cards, I mean, you can get some great benefits with credit cards, you know, like, and so...
Sorry to interrupt, but actually I wanted to know your opinion on credit cards. I mean, what do you think about how people have them?
It goes back to being how responsible you are with your money.
Okay.
And that's the number one thing to think. If you think, actually, I am responsible, I know I can pay off the balance in full every single month, then they can be a great source to build up. I know, like, one of my friends who's got, like, she is brilliant with credit cards. Okay. And all of her holidays go on them, all of her flights go on them. Like, they put everything on the credit card.
Okay.
But they pay it off every single month. So, and those points that they earn can pay for lots of different things. And there's certain credit cards here where you can get great amount to pay on spinny shops or different, whatever supermarkets. So if you play it right and you're strategic and you say, actually, do you know what? I'm going to use a credit card for this, like all of my expenses, but I know categorically I can pay that off every single month.
Okay. So you have to be responsible. You have to be that kind of person who is like, okay, it's this date, we got to pay it off.
100%.
Okay.
So as long as you're paying off the balance and making sure you're not getting those, the interest that goes on top, then you can they can be beneficial in that. And there's a lot of kind of, obviously helps with kind of credit checks down the line and different things. So they can be great, but you have to be very, very disciplined with them.
The thing is with paying off your debts, it can be a very humbling experience, right? Because you are, you pay off your debt, and then you look at the money that you have left and you're like, oh my God, now I can't live the life that I was living for the past, this amount of time. I have to really bring it kind of down. What would you say to people? Do you think it's like, I guess it's necessary. You have to do it, and then you get used to it. Maybe
you do. Yeah, you do. You are going to have to probably think through. I mean, obviously,
I feel like I'm talking about myself. But I'm sure a lot of people can relate. It's okay.
Yeah. No, definitely.
No, I'm not in debt. I'm not like that bad with money. I'm not that bad. But I realized something with coming here, by the way, how you were talking about like when you first move here. Actually, when I first moved here, I was like on it. I was like super, super good. And then I realized when the lifestyle started sucking me in, I was like, oh, this is going to be a challenge to say no to things and to stay home when I have to stay home.
And it is good. And it goes back to the point that I talked about earlier, like you need things in moderation, right? Like, and it's particularly if you're over, and it is challenging to think about that like FOMO fear as well that you kind of talked about. But I think it's about really aligning yourself about what those things that bring you joy. But also thinking, what are you here for? What are the financial goals and keeping those front and center of your mind as well. Like,
Yes.
okay, so I need to get out of debt. And once I get out of debt, like I'm going to be able to buy that house I want to buy or the car, or put up some money to set the business that I want to do. And I can still live my life because I'm going to do this, but it's not going to mean every single weekend.
Right.
I'm going to be out partying, or I'm going to buy all the clothes in the world. Because at the end of the day, like, especially if you're thinking at some point in 5 years, I want to go home as well. You need to really think about like, how do I have those end goals in mind? And you're not going to be able to, and obviously things like cars, whatever, depreciate in value or whatever 100%. It is, those things that you've kind of put all that money into.
It's a very interesting conversation about moving, like when you're migrating to a new country. So I actually want to touch upon the, for example, renting and buying.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people come to Dubai, have been coming to Dubai for the past, forever, just wanting to buy a place.
Yeah.
What would you say to people now? I mean, is there kind of, obviously you need like a minimum amount in your bank in order to get the loan approval and all that kind of stuff. But what is your opinion on renting versus buying?
Oh, it is a challenging one. It's one I've had various conversations with in Dubai in general. Like I think the market, it's a funny one. If you think you're going to be here for a while, so there's different things, right? So if you either see it as somewhere you're going to live, or you see it as an investment project. So I think either way, think of it long term. So over the long term, if you think I'm going to be in Dubai longer than 5 years, ideally then buying is going to be the best option for you if you can afford it. Because obviously with renting, there's a lot of those upfront costs and those things like rental costs. So actually when you compare side by, I think Property Finder, by memory, does do a good comparison of what's better in terms of buying versus renting over the long term. So you can look at it and say, okay, if I know I'm going to be here for the next 5 to 10 years, then realistically, like ideally, if you can.
So they do a calculation for you?
Yeah. I think it would just show, I think there's a way of showing like which one's going to be more beneficial for you. If you're thinking, actually, I'm only going to be in here 2 years, renting's probably going to be a best option, right?
Yeah.
So you need to really think about, and obviously if you've got a family as well, you kind of will be various aspects around, actually I want to really lay down foundations here. So ideally if you can buy, and then obviously there's the investment part of it. So a lot of people turn to real estate here, which is doing so well, and buying off plan. So off plan, if done right, and obviously this is where you need to get the right agents, developers behind it, and you need to know whether you're investing in the right places, but buying off plan can be a really good investment for you as well.
Yeah.
So there's various things about it. It's challenging. It depends on what you want out of life and what you're seeing that property for, is what I would say.
What about renting and buying cars when you first move here?
Buying firsthand, a lot of people advise cars depreciate the minute they come out the garage.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So you need to really think about what is it like, can you buy secondhand maybe? And think about then, and obviously then you can spread, if it's a loan, you can get loans quite easily and spread that over 5 years. So that might be a better option for you. I think, again, you need to do like weigh up the different cost analysis. Obviously, when you've got a car, there's the upkeep that comes with it, whereas renting, that's all built in. So you just need to think about realistically, what type of car is going to suit me best, how long I think I'm going to be in Dubai, and what's going to make sense for me. Probably buying secondhand is possibly going to be a best move. A lot of people I know do that.
Yeah. Do you find interest rates are better here than like England, for example? Or how do you...
car loans...
Yes. Or just in general, like, in terms of just, kind of putting things on installment plans and, having to pay off certain debts.
I think they are probably quite good here,
I feel
actually. I would say in general, particularly as they talk about car loans and or certain loans, whatever, I think they are good here at the moment. I say it's been a little while since back in the UK in terms of what their rates would be, but obviously on the housing market, obviously rates are very high in the UK and have been for the last couple of years.
Yeah, so that's where
but yeah, I think in general, like they're very good plans here to help you.
Yeah. Okay. What would you tell new couples who want to discuss finances for the first time?
Yeah, it's so important.
It's so important. And I feel like it's very awkward for people sometimes. It's obviously money is like the most kind of awkward topic to discuss.
It really is. Yeah.
But what would you tell them?
So I think it's about being really open and transparent from day one, because what you do find, and this is conversations that I've looked at as well, like with certain clients and that I've dealt with as well, is that money will always come up as being probably, and it's a sad fact in life, but it's actually the number one reason for divorce ahead of affairs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So the most important thing is being open and honest about your finances from day one.
Right.
So what is it you both want to sit down and say, like, obviously it's a bit awkward, but like what realistically are your financial goals going to be? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah.
Because when you're on the same page and you have the same financial goals about where you're going in life, that's a lot easier.
100%.
So open communication being number one, right?
Yeah.
The sad fact, and I think particularly in this region as well, like because talking about finances can sometimes be seen a little bit as taboo. What we do find, some of the research as well shows like 2 out of 5 couples keep financial secrets from each other.
Okay. So
That's
men and women?
Men and women, yeah.
All right. So women, going off and spending a certain amount of money, not telling their husbands or their partners.
And then I've had several people I've spoken to, or I understand have said, I don't know what my husband earns, or husband saying, I don't want to tell him what my salary is.
Okay. Interesting.
So that is so important.
There's a fear behind it because maybe we're just, I don't know, maybe the culture, we're just not used to.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just in this
it?
region, but like all around the world, like that is probably.
But why do you think? Why do you think? Maybe is it a fear of being judged? Is that why?
It could be different things.
Yeah.
So fear that the other person might leave them at some point and then want to take half their assets.
Okay, yeah,
that could be that's a big one. Fear of judgment, fear of then spending that amount of money, fear of, I mean, the judgment aspect comes up a lot in relationships.
I guess because what you spend on is very revealing to your character, right?
Yeah.
So that's also kind of, okay.
It is. And I think that the important thing is like, as I said, that's when it comes back to that open communication. And ideally, if you can do things like having a joint budget, having separate bank accounts, I think is important because the thing is when you do, often when you find that there's only one bank account for you all, why have you spent that money on that? Why are you spending money on that? Like, you know that we've got to spend this, but having a joint bank account for bills and things like that both parties like put in according to whatever
the percentage is. Yep.
Exactly. So that's important. But then having those bank accounts that's that money that's your own. And I think that's important to have that. But yeah, I think, as I said, it goes back to that being open about what it is that you want to achieve in life and where you're going.
Should couples have the same goals in terms of finances, or is it okay to have like one person have one goal and the other person wants to buy like a scooter, the other one doesn't?
Oh, of course, those sort of things. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like I think I'm talking like big goals, obviously. Like ideally it would be on the same page. Like you both perhaps in a relationship want to come to it, say, oh, actually at some point we want to buy a house together or whatever. And then you can think about those sort of financial goals. Yeah. But yeah, naturally you're going to have small things like for me, a couple of years ago, that was like setting up the business. And that was my kind of financial goal is separate from my husband's financial goal.
Right,
So those different things.
So these are like important things to you.
Yeah. But you'd like ideally having that conversation saying, do you know what, like, are we okay? Like, let's talk about this. This is what my dream is to do and put more money towards that. And then, we'll focus on you or whatever. Like having that open communication is really key. And having that mutual understanding about each other's kind of goals and where you're coming to at it with life.
And I guess you should be honest also about, debt before you get into a 100%. Relationship.
That's where, talk about being transparent. Lay it on the table because what you don't want is those surprises later down the line.
Yeah, exactly.
That is the most important thing. And the thing is what you might find is, do you know what? Yeah, like I'm totally in love with this guy or whatever. And there's a bit of debt there, but he's been open about it and we can work through it. We can work through that and we can do that. And that's the most important thing. And that goes back to those, try not to have those financial secrets because they will come up later down the line. At some point there'll be a revealing in some way and you need to be open about money.
100%. I totally agree. I mean, it's one of those things that's very kind of personal, but the sooner you kind of lay it out, it's just becomes
Yeah. And that book you talked about earlier, The Barefoot Investor, one of the things he talks about and I think is really key is having those regular money dates.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
that's a good one.
Yeah. So I think that's important for you both to kind of, because I say different things come up and different, like particularly when you've got kids, right? Like new costs come in, you're like, where did that come? Like, how are we going to approach this? So perhaps you need to revisit your budget on like a monthly basis to think about, okay, how do we do this a bit differently? Or how are we going to focus more on that goal that you wanted and the different things? So I think having those, even though it doesn't sound as sexy to have a money date.
Yeah, but necessary. It'll be sexy later when you guys have figured it out and you're happy.
Yeah.
So Are there any apps that are available here that people can really like get into so that you can kind of organize their finances?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few. I know there's certain banks that have ones that kind of can support you in terms of understanding the
where it goes,
where it's going, and like the different categories. I know there's one called Yabi. Yabi.
I used one called Toshl, TOSHL, and you can connect your bank account to it. So that, and then it gives you this like little pie graph of where your money goes. But for some reason, I don't know what happened. I don't know why I stopped using it, but maybe it was a bit complicated. I'm not sure. But anyway.
Yeah. There's I think another one called Wally as well.
Okay. Wally. Yes. I've heard of this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you advise people use these things or not?
I think it's helpful for sure. Definitely. I'll send you after this. I have got a budget tracker as well, which helps. It's free. So you kind of like can sign up in the show notes.
Yes.
But yeah, that does do the 50-30-20 rule, and you can use that, and it shows you that pie chart of where things are going. Okay. So that can support you. And like I said, you can then go through that and work through how to get closer to that.
Yeah.
The amount that you're saving. But yeah, I think there are a couple of out there, as I mentioned, those ones. Look at your bank as well, just see whether they have whatever, like say if you've got an app, then most likely will have ones to kind of manage as well.
Yeah. That's no, I think that's very important, especially when you don't have time to sit like here you just need something to take, like something to kind of make it less stressful for you and something less to think about. Okay, let's do this little experiment. So say somebody makes 20K a month.
Okay.
How would you advise them? Okay, the money's coming in their bank. How would you advise them to kind of spend it, save it, and kind of psychologically look at it? And how would you kind of advise them to, plan with it, like in terms of long-term and short-term goals?
Okay. So working on the 50-30-20, let's say, because that's a lot easier. So possibly with someone who's on about 20,000 a month, you want to be looking around about 6,000 for rent, I would say. And then on top of that, like let's get you up to 10,000. That's probably going to be the amount that you'll have for bills and for transport and any other kind of like I said, phone, internet, that sort of thing was probably, and food.
Yeah.
Now that might tip you a little bit from the 50 to 60%. You may be around 50% to 60% of that 20,000, but that's where it's mostly going to go. That's with this. No, the 6K is for the rent. Yeah.
Second part is how much?
For bills, food, like everything else is probably going to get you up to 10,000. So about 4,000.
4,000. Okay.
For the rest of it. Might be 5 if you kind of, obviously it depends on what your food budget is. I would say probably with cost of living, as I said, probably around about 11 or could be a little bit more if you do it structured this way, obviously. And then 30%, as we talked about, so getting you probably to about 15K probably. That's going to get you, the different living costs. There might be, you have to build into kind of, your brunches, your going out, that sort of thing that you want to kind of spend money on. But there may be element of kind of the loan aspect is that if, let's say you have any loans as well, you need to factor that in that part as well.
Okay. So 20K, 6K will go to your rent.
Yeah.
And then we've got the 4 to 5K for your living expenses.
Yeah.
And then the rest, you say there's like 9K left.
So 4K of that is going to be going out. That's your wants.
Your wants.
What we call your wants. So like what you want to spend
your
money
lifestyle.
on.
Okay.
Your lifestyle.
Got it.
Yeah. So that's, as I said, wherever you kind of like your shopping or the things that you're going to treat yourself to.
Yep.
And then that 5K, ideally, that you could be aiming for, that last bit is for the savings. Okay. So again, then you would think through making sure you've got money within that for your emergency fund. So at least like ideally at least 1,000, maybe 1,000 for retirement. And then you probably got about 3,000, sorry, I should say, for the short and medium goals, whatever you kind of want to factor in. Now that's in general would be a good rule of thumb.
Yes.
What you probably might find is that the needs might creep a little bit more into the wants and the wants a little bit more into kind of the savings. So depends on, that's an idealistic model. I get that. And there definitely will be challenges to that dependent. I mean, one of the biggest things at the moment, which we are seeing obviously is housing is going up. So rent is going up.
Yes.
Quite a lot across the board. So therefore, and wages aren't keeping up with that.
100%, yes.
So this is one of the things to kind of caveat with. So you would probably might see the latter part. So that 9K probably squeezed more and more.
A little bit more.
Yeah, I would say. That's just a rule of thumb to
a rule
work
of
from.
thumb. Yeah.
If you can get to that, I mean, that's great. But I appreciate that there are a lot of discrepancies.
Yeah, exactly.
There are a lot of factors.
Especially if you have kids and especially if you're like,
I mean, that's
when the holidays are coming up also.
I would say, if I'm honest, that's what a single person, that budget is probably for a single person.
100%, yeah.
Because obviously, as you just said, if you're in a couple, then that changes significantly because I've not even factored in education there.
Yeah.
So,
that's true.
yeah. So that will then change different models. So just to say that is a great model to follow, but it shouldn't be. If you can't reach that, you don't beat yourself up because obviously I totally get it. Things are changing. But the most important thing is trying to work out the little portion that you can save each month.
Yeah, for sure.
And trying different things with the mod. Like I said, that budget tracker that I've got, that does help you get a little bit closer and you can see realistically how you can inch a little bit more towards the savings each month.
Nice. Okay, amazing. Thank you so much.
No worries.
I was going to call you Lizzie, but thank you so much, Beth.
No worries.
Where can people find you? How can they get in contact with you if they want to do like a coaching session?
Yeah. So I am at Finance Her Well on Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn, Beth Clay.
Okay.
So reach out to me, just drop me a DM. I'm here to answer anything. I've got online masterclass as well if you kind of want to understand how to have a healthy, wealthy mindset. I do a lot around coaching around that. But yeah, I'm here for any workshops as well and support whenever you need.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
No worries. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, guys. If you like this video, then like, share, subscribe, or just say hello in the comments. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.